Okay. Hello and welcome to the Circularists. And this is a very special one because I'm speaking to Guy Lane, who is on the ground at COP28. And the other thing that's special about this interview is that Guy Lane is the very first Circularist interviewee.
Number one.
So excited for this. Number one. So that was about 6 months ago, I think, Guy, wasn't it?
Actually, I'm now thinking it might have been in January, actually. But anyway.
It's quite early, but anyway, so a long time ago. So just to reiterate, the Circularist, it's born out of my desire to amplify voices, the lesser heard narratives, the new, the innovative, the wacky, the creative, all of it. That's what the Circularist is about. This is no beauty parade. This is not the usual suspects. So here we go. Guy Lane, let's go.
But it's not a beauty parade. Anyway.
Well, you know, this kind of celebrity chasing culture that we live in. I call that the beauty parade. This is not that. This is real courage, passion, action.
This is pre-celebrity.
So Guy Lane, over to you. What are you doing at COP?
So I founded a couple of years ago an organization called Vita Sapien that was filling a gap. Something that was missing was, you know, when we talk about the climate and ecological crisis, there's all of this really intense left brain activity going on. It's all very scientific and rational. But fundamentally, what's missing and what's caused the climate and ecological crisis is that Western people in particular, but people in other cultures as well, have lost our spiritual connection to nature. So I wanted to explore that space and to basically create a global brand that could be a household name around the world that just helps people identify themselves as part of the living planet. And so that's what I've been working on over the last 7 years, really, but 3 years full-time. And there's two major components to that. So I call that the organization is called Vita Sapien. The program is broadly called Vita Worldview. And that's got two parts, which is LifeWise Philosophy and Vita Religion, which is a registered religious institution. And I'm launching Vita Religion at COP28.
So Guy, let me ask you a couple of questions, because the word religion sends many people cold because it has bad press and a bad legacy. So I want to ask you a few things about this religion. So first of all, why religion?
Yeah, so
why not something else?
80% of the world, 80% of the world follows a religion. So 80% approximately. So for that, it's popular, right? It's not so popular with the sort of free thinking, atheistic kind of hipsters, right? And part of the reason for that is because of the way that religions conduct themselves, is that there's sort of an assumption about what a religion is. That typically it's ancient, totally disconnected from reality, scientific reality, as well as daily reality.
Yes.
And it's full of all sorts of wacky stuff. It's got all sky fairies and all this nonsense, right? That's what people associate with religion. But when you look at the definition of religion, say in Australia, which is where Vita's registered, it doesn't actually have the word God in it. It says a belief in a supernatural. And so people that care about the planet see nature as supernatural. They see the way that seeds sprout and the way that the mushrooms connect each other under the soil and help the trees communicate, and the way that birds flock together. That's supernatural. And that's really what I'm exploring in this religion. It's not dictatorial. It doesn't tell you what to think. It simply invites you to open your heart to the living planet.
It sounds lovely. So in terms of this religion, would you be the head? Like, are you the Pope of Vita Sapien?
Actually, it's funny because a friend of mine refers to myself and Bill, who's the co-director, as the co-popes. It's not meant to be like obviously I'm the founder. Yes. I'm one of the Vitan ministers, so that would be my technical definition. The idea is it's a very flat hierarchy. That's what we've got planned. The idea really is that people would put their hand up to actually open or to set up pods, so that anybody in the world could say, hey, I love this, I want to be a part of it, I want to lead a pod. And then they're sort of based around full moon parties. So on a full moon, they bring people together and they say, look, let me tell you about what it says in Vita, and that they create their own sort of local version of it. So it's sort of like a flat plane, but with one little bump in it, which is the organization in the middle, which is actually where the doctrine is being created.
So what's going on in these pods?
Well, so just to be clear, so this is an ecocentric philosophy, not a biocentric, to make that distinction. So if you're out in the forest in Australia and you come across a cane toad, a biocentric person would go, oh, lovely little toad. Whereas an ecocentric person would understand the toad as a part of an ecosystem and would see that it's actually a really destructive force because it's toxic in all three phases of its life. So this is calling upon people to have a deeper understanding of the environment, as well as a deeper empathy for the environment and recognizing what's going on. Now, we're not calling for animal sacrifice, like,
I was
but no, and that's good, you know. But certainly on the full moon, you would have people gather together to watch the full moon rise, which itself is a part of nature's peak experience that's available to us.
Interesting. So why the full moon, Guy? Why the full moon? I love the full moon. It's beautiful.
Well,
its beauty is breathtaking. But why?
Because many people live in cities and towns. We've lost contact with natural cycles. Our holidays are not connected to the seasons. They're connected to colonialism and to Christianity, mainly in Australia. All of our holidays. Christmas is obviously, but New Year is basically a Christian holiday. That's a celebration of the circumcision of Christ. So another thing that Vita religion does is we advocate that people reinvent New Year, which is a call to reinvent all institutions, because we can't have annihilated most life on Earth in 200 years without every institution being in on the act. So we're looking to reinvent every institution as an agent to protect the ecosystem. That is our life support system, and one of those institutions is New Year.
So, having read through some of your materials, there are two things that seem to me in opposition, and I just want to ask you about those. So, on the one hand, there seems to be an open heart welcome to all faiths, because there'll be no disrespect, there'll be no conflict to come with all of your faith or none. But then on the other side, there seems to be an almost, I would say, mocking tone of faith. And so I'm wondering how you're going to draw people if they feel that if they feel that. So how do you reconcile that?
Yeah, well, no, that's an excellent question. And the distinction is there is Guy Lane's view of the world, and then there is Vita religion's view of the world. And quite often I conflate the two, and that's my fault. Okay, so one of the thinkings was, if I was on an interview like this, normally I wear my Quen pendant, right, which is one of the Vita symbols, but I don't know where it is actually. I think it fell off in bed last night because I was so tired. I normally take it off, and anyway, I misplaced it, which is like, well, actually I've got 15 in my bag. So, okay, so the idea was that I'd take the pendant off if I wanted to make a personal comment.
Right.
But it's also a lack of discipline on my point, because on my part, because I hold that people are free to hold religious views, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that I like the views that they hold.
Right.
Okay. And so, and I think this comes back to a really central part of what I'm trying to do with Vita religion, is to help people understand that they're responsible for their beliefs. Now, some people go, well, I believe this and I believe that. And I'm like, okay, you believe that, right? Are you responsible for that belief? Have you actually checked in as to whether that is a good belief, whether that belief leads to a good outcome? Because beliefs manifest into the real world through our actions and inactions. All right. So I can honor his right to hold beliefs and scorn his beliefs if they're foolhardy, in my view. There is a discipline that I've not yet really taken hold of, which is that if I'm speaking on behalf of Vita, I should be more respectful of views, even though I may personally find them ridiculous. So it's about helping people connect with reality. And this is part of part of Vita's views is grounded in Stoicism, which is the ancient Greek philosophy, which was founded around about the same time as the Abrahamic religions, and most of the major religions and philosophies of today were founded in a period called the Axial Age, around 2,300 to 2,800 years ago. And one of those philosophies was Stoicism. And that's really grounded in understanding reality and working within reality. And that's really what we're sort of trying to do, help people ground in reality. And the reality that's really present right now is the reality that we're putting 40 billion tons of carbon in the atmosphere, and we're heading towards the heat death of the planet unless there is some transformation. And I'm trying to trigger a transformation in this spiritual relationship for Western people who aren't religious people, but who are just trying to help them connect into the ecosystem. And Vita religion is one of the tools. And another of the tools is LifeWise philosophy, which is like the secular version of the same information.
So I'm just thinking there of indigenous peoples, First Nations principles and so on. What's the parallel and the connection and the relationship between what you're doing and how they've lived for millennia, if any?
Well, I mean, again, so I talk about I'm talking about Stoicism as a part of Vita religion, but indigenous worldview is also an important part. And really the heart of Vita religion is this idea of identifying ourselves as a part of the ecosystem, which is exactly what indigenous people do. Indigenous culture is all about their place in place, country, right? That they are a part of the forest. And that's something that Western people have lost. In fact, when white colonialists came into developing country, came into the countries they colonized, one of the things that they did was they sort of forced upon the indigenous people a view that they were separate from the land. And part of the reason, I don't know about the reason for that, but one of the benefits for the colonialists in forcing that view upon people is it made it easier for them to strip the forests that people had previously identified with as a part of themselves. And so really Vita religion, LifeWise philosophy, Vita worldview, all of these things are just different ways of trying to help people see the world the way that indigenous people see the world. Yes. But Western people don't necessarily have the same connection to a plot of territory because we move around so much. So really this is about helping people understand ourselves as part of the global ecosystem. So it's like much more expansive in a way than indigenous worldview, which tends to be focused very much on their own terrain. This is trying to help people understand themselves as part of the global biosphere.
Right. It's a very noble endeavor, what you're doing. So Guy, are you going to partner with or collaborate with indigenous leaders in this effort? How are you going to roll forward and as this grows? What's the leadership?
Well, so COP28, there's a lot of indigenous people. I keep seeing these Amazonians with these huge feathered headdresses, and I so want one. So I'm just going to go down the beach and I'm going to end up with one made out of seagulls and maybe a little bit of sparrow. But anyway, so I'm going to talk with these folk and I'm going to try and find a way to finesse that indigenous worldview into Vita. Because at the moment, this has been written by a cisgendered, heterosexual, middle-aged old white guy. And so I've got to try and, from a POM, British-born Australian. So I've got to try and change the language somewhat to make it more broadly inclusive. And that's just part of the ongoing
the development of it, yes.
Continual development, yeah.
So I'm very curious. I'd be very curious to see that collaboration and to just, because I imagine if you were to sit down and have a coffee with any of these indigenous leaders, that there'd be low resistance to the idea of Vita Sapien because it's so natural. It's to who they are. It's who they are.
Because they probably had a little bit enough of Western religions imposed on indigenous cultures. But on the other hand, if they understand what I'm trying to do, they might embrace the idea. And remember also, when I talk about Vita religion, this is not forcing anything upon anybody. It's simply a packet. It's simply a vehicle by which to convey ideas. So, yes. And again, those ideas are expressed also in the LifeWise philosophy. It's the same information. One is framed as a religion and the other's framed as a philosophy, although it's the same thing. The fundamental difference between LifeWise philosophy and Vita religion is that Vita religion features the supernatural and the practices, which meets the definition of a religion. All right. All of the same information is available in the secular LifeWise philosophy.
That brings us on nicely because when I glanced over those 9 practices, I was very intrigued. So can you reel those off to us, those 9 practices?
Yep, got them written down here in my press release.
Okay.
So, and the canons of conduct, we call them practices, and there are 9 practices. Okay, I'll just name them for you. Okay, so Okay, biosphere. I've already done that. All right. Live with earthity. Practice a Vita mission. Grow something. Celebrate the moon. Contemplate above and below. Actually, that's changed the name of that. That's called lava and cosmos. Anyway, reinvent new year. Know your white horse and return to the flux. That's the 9.
Was ticking off mentally as you were going through that list until it got to, I think, 6 or 5. So from 5, can you go from 5 again, please?
Okay, so biosphere, live with earth, the practice of Vita mission, grow something, celebrate the moon, contemplate lava and cosmos, reinvent new year, know your white horse, return to the flux.
So those last 3 then.
Right, reinvent new year, know your white horse, return to the flux.
So why reinvent new year?
So, okay, so we got the title, then we got the deeper meaning of it, right?
Yes.
So reinvent new year is not just a call to reinvent new year, it's a call to reinvent all institutions.
Right.
All right. So we have gone in 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, we have gone from being in balance with nature. I mean, chopping things down left, right, and center, not paying much. Agriculture is not great for the planet, but there wasn't that many of us in total.
Right.
So in 200 years, we've gone from that to being on the brink of annihilating most life on Earth.
Right.
Right. It took all institutions to participate in that ecocide.
Yes.
Right. So all institutions need to be transformed to make them a part of keeping the biosphere intact.
So
all
what
right?
does that have to do? Oh, you're about to tell me, are you?
Yeah. So reinvent New Year. One of the institutions is New Year. Now, New Year is, after all, an arbitrary date, right? It's the beginning and end of a circle around the sun. So, you know, in Iran, I think it's held in March. You know, in India, different. You know, there's
China. Yes.
Right. Okay. So every culture has got different New Years, right?
Right.
And they normally attach it to some sort of a culturally significant event, like the first harvest or something.
Right.
All right.
I read about Foreskin Day.
Foreskin Day, exactly. So New Year in the West is the 1st of January. I'm like, why the 1st of January? Well, because it's an ancient ceremony celebrating the circumcision of Christ. And when I learned that I'd been practicing New Year on Foreskin Day, I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. So I am personally going to reinvent New Year, and I chose the 16th of July, and that is the official, because I created Foundation Pod, that is the official New Year of Foundation Pod, and anybody else that creates a Vita Sapien pod or a Vita pod is invited to create their own New Year, with the invitation that it is a date that somehow speaks to Vitae Planeta, the living planet.
Right. So you think that in order to move away from all that's been done in the name of institutions and religion, we should have a reset, and one of the expressions of that reset would be a new New Year's Day that's universal.
Well, no. Again, I mean, part of the problem is everyone wants their religion to be universal, so you can't escape the 1st of January as New Year anywhere you go in the West, right? So what we're saying is that we can. I've established 16th of July, 9:29 p.m. AEST as the turn of the new year. I'll explain why in a minute. I'm not proposing that everybody does that in Vita. I'm just trying to open the idea that we should reinvent institutions, and here's one way of doing it.
Okay, all right. But we've got systems that are built, and we've got so much that's built upon the calendar year as it is.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
but
yeah.
we hear rationale, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I know. Just another thing. I'm still going to go and have a few glasses of wine and watch the fireworks on the 1st of January, or whatever it is. I'm just not going to accept that as the new year that I accept.
I understand. Okay.
Well, we can all personally have a new year.
We can personalize our years, can't we?
Yeah.
Our own rhythms, our own life rhythms. Yeah.
Yeah. I like just like I could go and, the last day of the year and 1st of January or whatever. You can go down to the park for Chinese New Year. They let off crackers.
Yes.
You can participate in that.
Yes.
You can have as many New Year's as like.
Right. Every day of the year is New Year's Day.
Every second that passes is another new year.
Okay, cool. So what was number 7? Oh no, well,
Ah,
where are we? We're number
oh,
7.
yeah. So know your white horse.
Yes. What does that mean?
Okay. So again, so literally what I'll explain what it means metaphorically and then come back to why I called it that. So
Right.
metaphorically, what it means is to know where you can find spiritual solace in nature.
Okay.
Okay. So know where there is a little place that you can go and sit under a tree, look at the lake, find your peace. When you're flustered,
Yes.
how to find your peace, but in nature. You might go, oh, I can find my peace by getting drunk on Lake Theo. Sure, not doubting that. Or I can find my peace by listening to, the dark side of the moon with my headphones on in the pub. I'm not
Yes.
doubting that either. I'm
Yes.
saying know where to find that thing in nature. So
That's
this is like
lovely.
an invocation to find the peak experiences
That's lovely.
in nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And it's something I've always done all my life.
Yeah.
Wherever I've lived, there's always a nature spot that
Yeah.
soothes my soul,
Yeah.
brings me
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So that's everything out.
Yeah.
But why a white horse, though?
Well, because the conception of it came when I visited the Uffington White Horse in the UK in 2017. So
Ah,
the Uffington White Horse is that extraordinary piece of pre-Celtic art, 3,500 years old, etched into the side of a hill. It's 100 meters long. It's extraordinary. And in fact, it's really interesting because you can't actually, when you're actually up close to it, when you're there, you can't see the whole horse because of the undulations of the land.
yes,
You've got to be like miles away or up in the sky to actually
yes.
see it as a horse. And I was there to participate in the chalking. So every year they go down and they pull the weeds out. So it's white chalks that it's etched into the ground surrounded by grass. So you've got grass, you've got dark green, and then you've got the white. And then the weeds come up, and so you pull the weeds out, and they put fresh chalk in, and you pound it with a hammer. And it's looked after by the National Trust, I think it is. And
Yes.
they invite the public in to come and do the labor. So I was in there, and it's a hot,
Oh,
sweaty day, and pounding the chalk
oh.
in. And it was a powerful experience, powerful spiritual experience. I say spiritual because it connects to sense of being, sense of place, sense of meaning. It connects to a peak experience, connects us to our forebears, if you like.
Yes.
So that was where the concept of know your white horse came from. But
I
then what I realized was that was my personal experience.
Right.
What I was trying to do is to express the experience and that other people have that same experience in
Yes.
there's own way. There's a
Beautiful.
dozen white horses around UK on the hillside. That's the old one.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a really distinctive stylistic pattern.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really interesting because I've been looking for that pattern. I've never seen it anywhere else. So there's this big mystery about, what it means and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's right next to Dragon Hill, which is supposedly where St. George killed the dragon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the last point then.
So the last one was return to the flux. So the concept is that we human beings, our physical bodies is made up of material that's basically sucked in from the atmosphere, the soil through the growth of plants, and that when we die, that we should return the minerals and the energy in our body back into the biosphere. So to give you an example of how not to do it, let me give you an example of exactly how not, the opposite of return to the flux, is that when my father died a few years ago, or 2005, I think it was, he was wearing synthetic clothes when they put him into a plywood box. So wood plus, petroleum-based glues.
Yeah.
With a petroleum-based lacquer on the outside and little plastic gold handles,
Right.
wearing his polyester shirt and jeans. And then they put him into a chamber where they burnt gas from a coal fire, like petroleum powered gas.
Right.
And they gave me a little plastic bucket with these ashes in it, which is still sitting on a shelf in my shed. Okay, so I haven't yet actually returned my father to the flux. So instead of doing that, which is your sort of traditional Western kind of burial, the idea would be what they'd call green burials, which is where you basically try and inter somebody in the ground to have them basically dissolve the way that nature has things dissolve and then go into the nutrient cycle and they show up in the trees. So the concept of not the concept of reincarnation, the way that the Buddhists or the Hindus might describe it, but revitalization, which is where the minerals in your body go on to be adopted into the bodies of other living organisms.
Right. Very much like the trees do. I've been learning about the root systems, everything that goes on in the soil, and it's so beautiful. The give back, it's your final give back.
The constant cycling of, I mean, nature just constantly cycling. The hydrological cycle is the cycle of water, the carbon cycle, and so forth. So it's about seeing yourself as basically the custodian of minerals and energy, and that when you die, you don't need them anymore. Put them back, and then they will break down into what we call the biophysical flux, which is when it turns back into a form that can be easily assimilated by other organisms.
Absolutely, because we do come from the earth. We're made of dust. We're made of stardust, in fact. The elements that the periodic table has just X amount of elements, and we're made of those. Carbon mostly.
And look, that is a really lovely new age spiritual view that we're made of stardust, and I technically agree with you.
But we are. Scientifically, we are.
No, I'm saying I technically agree with you, but what I'm saying is that we should concern ourselves with the well-being of the biosphere, and stars and cosmos is somewhat outside of the purview of Vita religion.
Yes, I guess I was just trying to connect us more widely. We're connected on Earth, but we're connected in the universe, in that the universe and Earth and us are made up of this very same ingredients.
And I agree with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
But you want to keep the focus.
But I'm saying that that's just not the focus of this particular spiritual frame of reference. Because what it does is it has people then say, oh, then we should go to Mars, because what it does is it places Earth on par with every other place in the universe, where it's not, right? Earth is the only place that we know of that harbors life.
Right. I hear what you're trying to do, and I fully 100% respect that. So so we zoom back to Earth and keep it all
the biosphere.
Yes, keep it all within the biosphere. Beautiful. Okay. It's I think that for a long time I've felt that humanity collectively, we need some kind of reset within ourselves. We need to be different. We need to be, humanity needs to change if we're ever going to inherit the future.
I might look, my view on it, I mean, I'm at a climate COP right now, and there's the people that there's thousands of people here, but there's there's 110,000 apparently delegates in total that are coming through over the 2 weeks, but there's only a few thousand that are actually negotiating the texts. All right, and so the power is heavily concentrated in the hands of these government officials, and obviously the fossil fuel executives. So I've been doing this stuff for 20 plus years now. I really started probably in 2000, so what's that, 23 years. And we're not gonna fix this mess. We're gonna hit the 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4, 6, annihilate life on Earth, unless we have a global spiritual awakening to nature, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to be through Vita Sapien, right? I'm just putting that out there, right? There should be, this is why I say we should have thousands of these new ideas. Vita Sapien is trying to pioneer a space. Right? Just trying to create a space. What I really hope is that thousands of people will copy what I've written, edit it for a different audience, and put it out there. Right? But I don't think we cannot fix this mess with the worldview that we hold.
I 100% agree with you there. 100%.
Predominant worldview is based on mainstream religion, new age spirituality, capitalism, growth, right? It's not going to work. Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're trying to create. We're trying to create Vita worldview, and Vita worldview connects us spiritually and intellectually to the life support system, which is life on Earth.
Marlene, thank you for your courage. Thank you for pioneering this new frontier, taking humanity back to its essence. I'm really excited to see what mushrooms out of this. And you know,
Mushrooms.
yeah.
It started with mushrooms. It ends with mushrooms.
Mushrooms you were, and to mushrooms you shall return.
Yes, exactly. I want to come back as a gold top.
So thanks for joining me again for your second
Yes.
Circularist interview, and it's not going to be the last. So let's keep the conversation and interviews going, and let's
Fantastic.
follow
Thank
this
you.
journey.
Yeah, and keep
All
doing
the
what
best
you do.
with it.
All right, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.